And Bella.
And Bella.
I took a step back and I was just like, this man has a gorgeous house. He has beautiful babies. He has a beautiful wife. He has an awesome job. Why would he want to leave this? And I remember talking to him about it, and that was the first time that I tried to actually say, what do you think about not separating from your wife? What if you really try to work on this? And he had expressed to me that we've tried to work on this, and it's not working, so that is why we're separating.
I really want to boil things down for us so we can understand why it isn't so important that we continue to follow down this path of seeking further investigation of Nichol Kessinger. I always go back to the number one primary reason that I believe Nichol Kessinger is not telling everything that she should be telling relating to this triple homicide plus, and that is the infamous phone ping in Frederick, Colorado at 6:16 a.m. the morning of August 13th. That is the morning that Shanann, Bella, and Cece went missing. The phone ping happened about half an hour after Chris Watt's truck was seen on Neighbor Nate's security camera footage backing out of the driveway. We know, according to GPS tracking, that the truck's next destination was Survey 319, where Shanann, who was pregnant 15 weeks, and her baby, Nico, Bella, and Cece's bodies were found later that week. A couple of things have come to my attention recently. After you read through all of the discovery material and other supporting material so many times, you tend to miss things. The focus of this video today is going to be what occurred on July 14th and how it may relate to the eventual tragedies. So, piece by piece, I've already explored the various things that occurred on July 14th, and it was just recently when I was researching this particular date, and things kind of just came together for me. And I'm going to explain that in just a bit. So let's take a look at what occurred on July 14th, 2018, in Nichol Kessinger's own words. Now, you can hear her own words telling you about what happened on July 14th, 2018, in 3 of the 5 interviews that were recorded, the audio at least, between her and Kevin Kobach. She also gives you a written account of what happened on July 14th, longer after the fact, through her 7-page letter to law enforcement that was dated September 5th, 2018. It's worth noting that this letter was submitted to law enforcement on the day that she found out that she was no longer going to be working with Kevin Kobach, but rather moving forward, she was going to be working with Dave Baumhover. I don't know if it was Kobach himself or perhaps some people in law enforcement who were listening to the recorded interviews of Kessinger and Kobach, decided that maybe they weren't getting as far as they wanted to get with him being the interviewer. We all know that their relationship, and I'm speaking of NK and Kobach, was really friendly, maybe getting a little too close. Perhaps there were some connections that they were making, just maybe, that were prohibiting him from getting as many answers from her as law enforcement wanted or expected. So in case you forgot what it sounded like when Kobach and NK were talking when he was interviewing her, let's take a listen to a sound clip from one of their phone interviews.
Thanks for remembering that.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm really trying to help you guys.
I need you to help me too. Like,
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
do this as a team, but just don't.
So
fucking let me down,
the
please.
reason why we can't, like, I did think about this yesterday, that I would like to sit down.
So, yes, you did hear right there. She said, I'm trying to help you, but, we're just doing this as a team here. So don't fucking let me down. Let her down? What exactly did law enforcement owe Nichol Kessinger? Let's hear Nichol Kessinger's own words what she and CW did on July 14th. This clip is from the second interview where she came in to speak with, well, actually it would be the third interview in total, where she came into the police station to speak with Kevin Kobach. And yes, her father was present.
So the second time I went to that house, I'm not sure what day it was, but it was the weekend of the 14th.
Of August?
July. I don't know if it was the 14th or the 15th. One of those 2 days. But we had went out and we stopped there just real quick on the way back. And we were there not very long. But that time I saw a picture of his wife and one of his kids. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, she's so beautiful. And I, took a step back and I was just like, this man has a gorgeous house. He has beautiful babies. He has a beautiful wife. He has an awesome job. Like, why would he want to leave this? And I remember talking to him about it, and that was the first time that I tried to actually say, what do you think about not separating from your wife? Like, what if you really try to work on this? And he had expressed to me that we've tried to work on this, and it's not working, so that is why we're separating. And I spent some time, just, kind of, because it almost made me feel bad, where I was, to the point where I'm engaging in a relationship with a man who, the way he described it, is in a contractual agreement, but was not in, an emotional relationship with somebody. And for me, the way I would have preferred to do this is to have waited till that contractual agreement was also done, and he was done. And he could have approached me and said, I've just had a divorce, maybe we could take this slow, what do you think? But instead it was, oh, we're separated, and we're working on a divorce. And that is the part that I feel bad about, because I should have waited on that, and I didn't. And, I was just like, well, they're already there. So, but then being in a house, I was just like, why? Fix this. Find a way to fix this. Make it work, And I was trying to push him to do it, and he seemed pretty reluctant to do it. He didn't want to. And, I don't know, we were still seeing each other fairly frequently, but I kind of backed away so we weren't hanging out quite as much, and we were still close, but it was just, I really wanted him to try. I wanted to know that he tried and it didn't work, and then he moved on, not that, they both kind of tried, and then he got himself into a situation with somebody else. And I don't know, I just thought he had a beautiful life going on, and he could have made it work. That was the way I looked at it from the outside.
So, is this something you reflected on since this event, or was this you?
No, I was doing it then. You
said, this doesn't look right, he's kind of, I don't want to be responsible for breaking up a marriage, especially with 2 children. Is that kind of the gist I'm getting here?
I didn't think it didn't look right. I mean, I think he was legitimately sleeping in the basement, and I didn't think that these two were, I think it was hey, we're both stuck in this house for now. We gotta sell this. In the meantime, you live here, I live here, we sleep in different rooms, take care of the kids. That's just kind of how I took that. And, no, I didn't think it didn't look right. I just thought it just seemed like he had so much going on, and it was just beautiful, that I was like, why don't you just try this out,
Okay, so there are several things in that audio clip that are just wrong. Most of them I'm sure you picked up on yourself. So a couple things relative to the date, July 14th, 2018, and the way her stories don't line up with each other is that she says outright, we were there for a not very long time. Okay, we were there for a short time. All right, and during the time that they were there, it's certainly, now you tell me in the comments if you think I'm wrong, she makes it sound like her big concern was CW saving his marriage, his beautiful relationship with his wife, right? That's the main concern as she relays it to Kevin Kobach. She says it almost made me feel bad and talks about the contractual agreement that supposedly Watts told her he was in with his wife. I don't know about that. Maybe, maybe not. She kept saying, I really wanted him to try. Something that I noticed was she said, I really want him to try. I want him to know that they tried and then it didn't work out and he moved on. She kind of catches herself there. It's not that she wanted them to try for the sake of him saving a beautiful thing. She wanted him to try so he could prove to her that she was number one. She wasn't second fiddle. That he really wanted to be with her above all else, okay? Kobach explicitly asks her, is this something you reflected on? And she said, nope, I was doing it then, which we know she wasn't. She later says after that, yeah, I kind of pulled back. I was cold feet in it. And we know from the mountain of evidence that we see in Discovery, and I'm sure there's a lot that we don't see in Discovery, that was not true at all. She also says outright to Kobach, well, it wasn't about us. I kept saying to him when he would say, well, what about us? Well, what about us? I would say to him, well, don't worry about us. Worry about your relationship. That's more important. But then she clearly is going to contradict herself in the 7-page letter that we're about to take a look at that she submitted to law enforcement when she found out that she was having a switch in investigators from Kevin Kobach to Dave Baumhover. So let's go ahead and take a look at this 7-page letter that NK sent in unsolicited to law enforcement that she dated September 5th, 2018, okay? So she says that we went to his house and she went to drop him off after they visited the Shelby Mustang Museum in Boulder. So that's what she was referring to, and we just listened to that recording from her interview. She says, while at his house, I felt uncomfortable, as if I did not belong there. Well, no shit. He had built a beautiful life, and it made me think that there was still a chance for him to fix things with his wife. I've noticed that as I've listened to all these interviews and her letter, there's just some choice wording that she weaves throughout. It's just the wording is repeated. To me, it's almost rehearsed, repeated, and repeated again. She says, I told him that I did not think it was fair to SW or to me that he was trying to live two lives by being in a relationship with both of us at the same time. Said that I think he either needed to fix things with her or let me go, or he needed to move towards trying to finalize his divorce. I told him that I thought his problems with SW were fixable and that he should focus on trying to rekindle the relationship that they had before giving up. He said that SW was set on separating and that so was he. He said that SW wants something, she gets her way. I told him that I did not understand why he hadn't completed the divorce after all these months, if they were so adamant about it. If she wanted it as bad as he stated, I did not understand why it seemed so stagnant. At this moment, I realized that he might be lying to me about his separation. So I started quizzing him on things that he had told me earlier. Okay, so she remembers this much later while she is writing this letter to law enforcement, and she includes these very specific details. But she did not remember any of this, the part about him possibly lying and what we're about to learn. She quizzed him on when she was interviewed by law enforcement. It's just all so weird. It's like she builds her story as she's going along to whatever best suits her and makes her look
as good as she possibly can given what's happened. So she goes on to say, this I refer to as the moment any guy I know would never, ever, 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 ever want to date this woman or would dump her if he was dating her. So she says, I asked him when was the last time he was intimate with his wife. Good Lord, heaven above. And then she says, CW told me that day that the last time that he and his wife had sex was in May. But he told me on an earlier date that the two had not been intimate since March or early April. She then says, I asked CW if he used protection when he slept with her because he stated on an earlier date that he had used condoms when they had sex. He told me that he had not used protection. She goes on to say, I asked him if he was lying about the separation, and CW said no, in capital letters. I asked him if he was actively trying to have a child with SW since they had unprotected sex. He said no, in capital letters. I left his house. So I think the reason that this is relevant, the difference we see here between her verbal account that she gave law enforcement when she was interviewed and this written account that she gave law enforcement after she had time to think about it and think about what was going to make her look best, was that in her first verbal account, it's all about him and Shanann and their marriage, even though she won't say Shanann's name, and him saving his beautiful life. But here, and I don't know why she includes these details about asking him when they had been intimate. But, I think this is probably more along the lines of truth, if anything. I think she did go down this line of questioning, asking him when they had last been intimate, etc., because it was never always about CW, and definitely not Shanann or anyone else's happiness for that matter. It was always about her and her happiness and getting exactly what she wanted. So let's take a look at what Chris Watts himself had to say in regards to what happened on July 14th, 2018. We get Chris Watts' account in kind of bits and pieces through his interview with Tammy Lee, Dave Baumhover, and Agent Coder when they go to visit him in prison, and he does reveal a little more of what he says happened to his wife, his daughters, and his unborn son. And he also does reveal more about what he was thinking and more details about his relationship with NK. Now, this is all assuming that we can believe that some or all of this is true, which, anything that he says we do need to look at with a skeptical eye, because a lot has been said and then retracted by him or disproven in another way. So, we've got to take it for what it's worth, basically. So he does say, he says earlier in the interview that he had to talk her down sometime. And just like with many of the other things that the investigator should have latched onto and asked more about, he just kind of moves on from that. He later does say to Tammy Lee, this quote here, she, talking about Kessinger, had her moments where I had to talk her off a ledge kind of deal. Okay, when, Tammy Lee asks him to talk a little more about that, he immediately goes into, now this is interesting, there were some kind of videos of Kessinger recording herself because she was bipolar. He goes on to say that his father, as an attorney, told him about a few of the videos Kessinger made where she was talking about being bipolar. He goes on to say she'd get worked up about nothing. And then he went on to talk about the times that Kessinger went to his house. In my opinion, all of these different things are not next to one another in the interview, coincidentally. I think that in Chris Watts' mind, what he said first, that he had to talk Nicole off a ledge sometimes, and then the idea of her possibly being bipolar, and then his recollection of her coming to his house a few times. I think for him, in his mind, these things are all very closely related. Get me? Does that make sense? So I think that he's thinking about talking her off a ledge. She's freaking crazy, and she was super crazy.
the times when she came over to my house. So in that interview, when he does talk about her coming over on the 14th, he recalls missing many calls from Shanann, like 10 calls. And I think he missed like a total of 12 calls that day, as we will see in Discovery, where they laid out the quote unquote facts of the case. Okay. And he also talks about him, then learning that, she was, until then, he didn't know that she was dating other people, and he found out that she had made several dates or a couple of dates on eHarmony, but she didn't actually go on those dates because the people that she made the date with did not show up. Okay, very interesting. At another point in this interview, he also does talk about Nichol Kessinger saying that she really wants to give him his first son, that she was often caught up on this idea of being in second place or playing second fiddle, and that it was her grandest hope that she could someday give him a first son. Now we can corroborate Chris Watts' account of July 14th, a la his interview with Tammy Lee and friends, with his account of the day, July 14th, as he recalls it in his book with Sherilyn Cadle, Letters from Christopher. I don't have a copy of this to show you because I did not purchase the book, but I've read this part several times. So Christopher Watts tells Sherilyn Cadle that they were over at his house, and Dieter, the probably 8-pound dachshund, leads Nichol Kessinger upstairs. I guess he strong-armed her into going up the stairs. So when she's up there for a couple minutes playing around with Dieter, supposedly, and when she starts to come down the stairs, she is frozen on the stairs, and it has a dazed look on her face. When he asks her what's wrong, she goes on to tell him, I just saw a picture of your wife and girls, and what the heck, what's going on? She's so beautiful, and why are you doing this? Why would you give up all of this for me? And so Christopher Watson says that he, was able to talk her down off the ledge. He pulled her over to the couch and held her and consoled her and told her, that she is the only one. And it was at that point, Nichol Kessinger, probably in retribution, told him about the dates that she had made with the eHarmony folks. So later on, they each go on to talk about how their sex life was never the same after that, and that when Nichol Kessinger pressed him as to what was wrong, he said that he couldn't get over the fact that she had planned on going on some other dates. Okay. So it was also, according to his account in Sherilyn Cadle's book, and Nichol Kessinger's account in piecemeal sound bites throughout her interviews with law enforcement regarding this day, July 14th. I will never know why they didn't press her more to get her freaking story straight. That Nichol Kessinger tells him that she wants to give him his first son. Okay? So this really is a whole lot to put together here. So let's now compare this to what is said in Discovery. We see that on July 14th, it says Kessinger and Watts visited a Mustang museum in Boulder together. Check, the Shelby Museum, right? It says that around 10 o'clock, Kessinger called Watts, and they held nearly a 5-minute conversation. Apparently, they're making their plans to meet up, right? Then it says at 10:19, Watts logged onto Facebook. Now, this is interesting. This day and a couple days before, and I think a day after or two, Watts logged onto Facebook, which is out of character for him. And shortly thereafter, he deleted his Facebook account. But that's for another video. Take note. The Discovery then goes on to say at 10:56 to 11:38 hours, Watts took photographs of assorted vehicles, and the metadata proves that he was actually, yes, at the Shelby American Collection Mustang Museum. At 12:46 to 13:08, Shanann, oh gosh, poor Shanann, made 4 unanswered calls to Watts. So this is in line with his account when he was talking to CBI saying that she had called several times that day and he had not answered, okay? At 1317 minutes, so that's at 1:17, Watts answers Shanann's fifth call, and they held just a 5.5 minute conversation. So he could check in with his wife and his daughters who are across the country. So at 13:25 or 1:25 p.m., Watts searched the internet for 24 Karat Bistro and the restaurant's menu. So remember, macros. NK was very picky about what she ate. The data analyst that was working with law enforcement notes, I confirm this restaurant is located at 587 Briggs Street in Erie, 10 miles south of the Shelby Museum. So this all sounds aligned. At 1436 and 2:15:27 hours, so this is 2:36 to 3:27, Shanann continued to make unanswered calls to Watts. I just feel so freaking bad for this woman who is 15 weeks pregnant with this man's baby. At 1537 or at 3:37 p.m., Kessinger calls Watts, and of course he answers, and they hold a nearly 5-minute conversation. At 1602 hours, 4:02 p.m., Kessinger called Watts, and they held a nearly 43-minute conversation. So I'm just going to go to, the time that we use here, not military time. At 4:26 p.m. to 5:27 p.m., during that call and just after, Shanann made 4 more unanswered calls to Watts. So while he's on the phone with Kessinger and after, again, for the third time, Shanann is ringing up her husband, wants to tell him how the kids are doing, how the baby that's growing inside her belly is doing, and he just, can't be bothered. Here we have at 5:23 p.m., Watts finally calls Shanann back, and they held a 10-minute conversation. Ostensibly, this is after NK had left his house. At 6:14 p.m., Watts spends nearly 2 hours online researching Dave Bunk Minerals. Dave Bunk Minerals, in the data analyst notes, it's a mineral dealer located near Arvada, and he's looking for dioptase, which is a translucent emerald-colored mineral. Now remember, NK was very much into minerals, quartz, crystals, and all of these other more natural geo-type things. Okay. Okay, so it should be noted that also in Watts' account of this day, July 14th, 2018, as he's telling the author of Letters to Christopher, he says that, all of this, NK seeing the pictures, them talking about her making dates with people in eHarmony and not going, and then eventually afterwards, after what I'm about to mention happens, she telling him that she wants to give him her firstborn son. Nichol Kessinger got really pissed off, and she stormed out of the house, and she went and sat in her car, and she sat there, and they were texting back and forth or talking back and forth while he was in the house, and then eventually she came back in. Now, this just really reminds me of, I said this on one of my live streams, that I can remember doing something like this with my very first boyfriend when I was like 15 years old, and I would behave this way. If something was going the way I didn't want, I would, kind of storm out, try to be dramatic, make a point, and then, I'd return and want to be loved. Well, that was me doing that with my 15-year-old undeveloped brain and, learning how to be mature and act in relationships. And in this case, we are talking about a 30-year-old woman in a relationship with a married man with a family, definitely acting in this very childish way. So I think that some of this accounts for the conversations that they were having, during which time Shanann was calling and he didn't answer. She went and stormed off, sat in her car for quite some time, according to him, and then eventually came back in. That's when they had the conversation that ended with she telling him that she wanted to give him his first son. Now, what are we missing here? It seems like we're missing a piece of information, right? What else may have happened on this day? I mean, what prompted NK to go so far as to tell him that she wants to give him his firstborn son. I wonder. Well, it just so happens that on this very day, on July 14th, 2018, Shanann posted on Facebook, which we know Nichol Kessinger was looking at based on the copious amounts of Google searches that were found and that were actually released regarding her searching the Watts family, its members, and things about the Watts family. And Shanann Watts posted her first picture of her first little outfit that she had purchased for the anticipated baby Watts. This is a post that appeared on Facebook that same very eventful day, July 14th, 2018. It's a picture of this little North Carolina Panthers onesie, so super cute. And actually, if, Nichol Kessinger didn't know better and was wondering, just by the colors, these look like boy colors to me. It's not a pink little outfit. It says, bought baby Watts first outfit. Okay. This post is leaving nothing to question. Is it Chris Watts' baby? Well, she says baby Watts. Is the baby, in the oven or not? Well, she's buying outfits for it. So, yeah, it is. And if she were to surmise whether it was a boy or a girl, based on this picture, just when you're thinking our traditional baby boy blue or baby girl pink, this would look to me like it would be more of a baby boy outfit. But, let's say we don't even have to go that far. It is without a doubt a fact that Nichol Kessinger knew that Shanann Watts was pregnant because she had been posting about it for a couple weeks prior to this post. And from what we can tell, Nichol Kessinger was searching her on Facebook basically every day, searching her on Google, where her Facebook page would be the first thing to come up virtually every day. I am going to take a wild guess. It would not be a logical leap to say that Nichol Kessinger had already stalker searched Shanann Watts on this day, July 14th, and she saw this post. So this picture of this cute little outfit for the anticipated baby boy Watts, in my opinion, was what set Nichol Kessinger off that day and why July 14th, 2018 was such an eventful day in the relationship of NK and CW. What I also believe to be true is this is the day when CW started to set his plan into motion. It was on this date he realized that his worlds were colliding, that he could no longer pull off this scheme of having these two separate lives, his life with his family and then his life with his lover on the side or happening at the same time or however he saw it. It is my belief that on this day, when his worlds came crashing together and his sweet little lover had basically a nervous breakdown for which he had to talk her down off the ledge, and she stormed out of the house and made crazy calls and crazy texts inside the house from her truck in the driveway to him for quite a while, that Watts was like, this cannot be my reality. This cannot happen. She is not going to deal with me having a family while she is in my life. I need to do something about it. It is my opinion that on this day, she gave him a super huge ultimatum, and he was left with the thought of, what do I do to, live the life I want to live? I can't have them both at the same time. It's got to be one or the other. Now, on a Facebook live stream that I subsequently erased just due to the nature of the messages that I received afterwards, I did reveal that, a friend of mine who is an attorney had been in contact with some people who are critical, pivotal, central to the case, and they conceded that text and phone call records were in fact recovered, and it was on or around this date
that there was evidence of Watts putting his plan into place. Or, I guess probably more accurately from what I was told, that there were the seedlings, the inclinations that could be gleaned from the messages that were recovered, that a plan like the one that was carried out the week of August 13th, 2008 was in fact in place. How freaky is that? Now, I have some educated speculation as to how the 2-hour search Watts made for Dave Bunk minerals and dioptase fits into this whole scheme of what went down on July 14th. I was going to talk about it in this video, but this is getting a little longer than I was anticipated. Sometimes I add more details than I first had envisioned, and I am going to save that for a video that will be coming up very soon. So if you're interested in seeing how dioptase and Chris Watts' 2-hour search into Dave Bunk minerals and dioptase fit into this whole picture, please be looking for that soon. And as always, I thank you guys so much for watching. I wish for complete justice to be served to whomever is involved in this tragedy on behalf of the victims, Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico Watts, and may their spirits and souls soar and rest in eternal and heavenly peace. Thank you for watching.